All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is 7 p.m. I'm going to call to order the regular city council meeting for Monday, August 12th, 2019. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Holly, will you call the roll, please?
Walton. Here. Bizzard.
Here.
Bellinger.
Here.
Wise.
Here.
Rhines.
Here.
Gilroy.
Here.
Smith.
Here.
All right, I am looking for approval of the agenda for this evening, unless there's changes. Yes, Corey.
Would just like to recommend to remove item 16.
Okay.
We no longer need the closed session.
All right, so in that motion, we're going to want to make sure that we include that with the change.
I make a motion to approve the agenda as submitted with the exception of item number 16 is no longer needed. Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right. And now we have opportunity for audience participation with a maximum of 5 minutes per presentation. All right, moving right along. We have a presentation this evening from Alan Boyer, which he is with LSG Engineers for the compensating cut for the north of the Red Cedar River. Thank you for being here this evening.
Thank you, Mayor. My name is Alan Boyer, LSG Engineers and Surveyors, 3135 Pine Tree Road in Lansing. And we are the civil engineer, engineering consultant for a proposed development in the city of Lansing on the old Red Cedar Golf Course. That's right across the street, across Michigan Avenue from the Frandor Shopping Center. That site has been the topic of a lot of discussions with the city of Lansing for the last 7 years. This spring, in April, the city finally approved the real estate development agreement, and so it looks like the project is proceeding. And if you were on the council or obviously in the community probably 3 years ago, you recall or may have gotten notice regarding a proposed part of the project that's in Williamston Township across the river. And so I'm here to talk about that part of the project today, just to kind of bring you up to speed and let you know what's going on. I know that when we did the site plan submittal back in January of 2016, there were a lot of residents from the city there, and so we thought we'd take this opportunity to make a presentation to you, albeit brief. The site that you see on the screen here is basically the Google Earth image of the city. This is the downtown part of the city here, and Berkshire Golf Course is right here.
Can I interrupt for a second? Dan, can you
Sure.
turn the lights
Yeah.
just there, please? There you go.
Yeah, that's better.
Oh yeah, much better.
Thank you, Dan.
Good job, Dan.
Here's obviously Grand River
That's
through
fine.
town. And the yellow line here, from what we were able to identify online, is the city limits, and that basically, at this point, follows the river through here, dividing the city limits from the township. Part of the development of the Red Cedar Golf Course involves filling the floodplain, for which we need a permit from Eagle, formerly DEQ. And because Michigan statutorily has a no net loss requirement for floodplain volume, we have to provide a compensating cut for the fill that we are permitted to have within the same watershed. And certainly that development in Lansing is on the Red Cedar River, and so within the same Red Cedar River watershed, we have to provide a compensating cut. The developer has been talking to the owners of the Burton Holdings property, or the Stover family, who you probably know. They own this property here along the river, and then around to Beeman Road. The old Stover farmstead is here. We've talked to them previously and certainly are continuing to regarding using a portion of the property for the compensating cut site. The portion that is being proposed is in this area right here, alongside the, I'm sorry, it's this area right here, adjoining the river. What we would propose to do is remove the soil in that area and dispose of it up here in the farm field, in the low area that's up here just south of the cemetery, and essentially regrade that portion of the farm field to make it more productive for farming purposes, since they have a low area up here that is essentially not farmable most years. It is a non-regulated wetland. It does not fall under the jurisdiction of either Eagle or Williamstown Township's wetland ordinance. And so what we would propose to do is simply fill that. If you would advance to the next page. There you go. So this is turned 90 degrees from the previous aerial photo. North is actually to the left. And so here you see the river. And that is obviously the city limits and the township boundary. This is the entire Stover farm here, with the portion we're proposing to do the work in, right in this portion here. Here's the cemetery. This is the wetland area that we would propose to fill. Next page, please. So you can see, it's a little bit hard to tell on this, this darker outline here is the area that we are proposing to excavate. Again, it's alongside the river. The river comes up right here and makes a dog leg. And at this point, what we're proposing to do is create an opening above the ordinary high water mark of the river and simply allow the river to flood into this area. This area over here is a regulated wetland, and the township has an ordinance that requires a 40-foot buffer. We also have a regulated wetland on this side, but this is high ground, and so we would simply excavate this to below the floodplain elevation. Although it is high ground, at least half of it or a little more is already below the floodplain elevation. We would just simply make it lower. It's a little hard to see in this particular slide, but we've proposed the contours here to take this volume of earth and simply spread it out right here. And I'll show you on the last slide what also is being proposed. You could go to the next slide. This is a blow up of the area where the dirt is proposed to be proposed. And again, what would simply be done is they would push all the topsoil back, fill in the area with the soil that's excavated, reapply the topsoil back over the top, and essentially flatten the farm field out. Next slide. This is a blow up of the area where the excavation is to take place. You can see the thread of the river right here. From this side, the river actually makes another loop here. So from this side of the river to here is something on the order of about 800 feet across the river and the flats. So I don't know that it's going to be visible at all. And we're certainly not digging the embankment all the way to the river. We're simply just making an opening here that would allow this to flood. And then this slope would essentially be similar to the slopes that are along some of the higher banks of the river.
Real quick, how wide is that opening?
This opening here?
Yes.
Oh, I think it's only like 40 feet or 50 feet, something like that. It's not like we're opening up the entire bank. It might be 100 feet, but it's simply enough that once the river starts to rise, the water just moves into that area, and then when the river drops, it just flows out.
So that bottom of that cut will be at the maximum of the floodplain, is that what you're saying?
Well, the bottom of the cut is going to be roughly
Well,
the same elevation as the bank of the river.
right.
So that once the river comes out of bank, it's going to fill out into that area.
Okay.
The existing floodplain contour right now is this dark line right here. The existing 100-year floodplain contour follows this line, comes around here through the site, and then comes back. So this whole area kind of pushes out into the river, which is why this oxbow is here. So we're basically, what we're proposing to do is drop it, and then the new floodplain contour will simply come up and wrap around this, and then back out.
So what do you do with all the deforestation of all the trees and stuff there?
The trees that are here will simply be removed. The township site plan review requirements required that we go in and mark all of the trees and locate them, and those are included in the site plan submittal. This will be allowed to regrow. Last slide. Thank you. So this is the Summit Cemetery, north of the Stover property. One of the places that we've discussed with the township disposing of some of the earth is the very back portion of the cemetery. They are proposing or considering proposing putting in more of a natural burial area out there. And there may be some issues with groundwater elevations that would necessitate them raising the ground. And so we're able to provide them something on the order of 10 to 15,000 cubic yards of dirt to make it possible to do that. The particular project that we just looked at here has already been permitted by DEQ permit, or Eagle now. They permitted it in January of 2016. There are certain changes that we are going to ask for revisions on in the permit because the scope has changed somewhat. And with that being said, we've also resubmitted to the township for site plan review. I think we are on the agenda for their August 28th meeting. I've already made this same presentation to the township last month. And we are also in the process of submitting to the Ingham County Drain Office for the soil erosion sedimentation control permit. So we're essentially revising and renewing our permits that have already been issued at least once on this project. The DEQ permit, or Eagles permit, is still good through January of 2021, so that's a 5-year permit. But that's basically where it stands. Like I said, we wanted to kind of do this as a courtesy to the city, just to let you know what's going on. We are on the agenda, like I said, for the 28th of August at the township, and we'll be making more of a formal site plan presentation to them at that time.
I do have a question. How is this whole project gonna impact, say, the Red Sea Dirt and where Deer Creek come together as it crosses Grand River down here?
It shouldn't impact it at all. We are not proposing anything that would change the floodplain elevation. We're simply providing a consistent amount of volume through the watershed that is currently already being stored. So we're not proposing anything that would create a backwater or backwater up anywhere. And that's part of the permit requirements that we submit to Eagle. We have to provide them with hydraulic modeling, particularly downstream, that shows that we're not creating a harmful interference.
I have to say, this presentation, because I was actually out at the township
Oh,
back
okay.
because I live on William Street, so
Okay.
it backs up to the river. This is by far so much better and so much more informative, so I appreciate that.
No problem.
I know back when we had the presentation out there, and some of the general questions that came up was, why was this property picked, something not in Meridian Township, you know, farther down, and the explanation was great. This was an opportunity to do it on the Stover property. They had the property, and it was like a natural location for it. And I know there was some William Street residents that weren't real excited about it. They asked about wildlife impactment, the forestry, what was coming down and everything. So this is very, explains it a lot better, I think.
Well, I'm here for questions, so if anybody's got any questions.
When do you guys anticipate doing this?
The work proposed for the golf course site is intended to start sometime in mid to late September. And so that's why we are in the process of getting permits and things revised or reissued. It's likely that the DEQ or Eagles permit will require that some of this work be done at the same time, so that as fill occurs down there, there's not a loss in flood volume, and so it needs to be created. So this will follow very shortly on its heels, likely this fall or early winter.
And how long will it take approximately?
I have no idea.
Okay.
Part of it's gonna depend on the contractor.
Well, sure.
And one of the
whether
contractors that
come
they're
in-
talking to is Toby Construction, who is the Stover family. So
Oh, okay.
they may be doing their own work. So
Okay.
we don't know that yet, but that's a possibility.
John.
So, what kinds of equipment should we expect to be moving through town, over the bridges?
Well, I suspect that, certainly if it's Toby Construction doing the work, they're gonna bring pans and heavy equipment and that kind of stuff
So we're
out
talking
there.
vans, excavators,
Yep,
off-road
yep.
trucks.
They're
combination
gonna
of
move it
everything.
as much as possible and as quickly as possible, so.
And this is Toby Construction that's doing like all I-75, Toby Walsh.
Yes, that is Tom and Jeff Stover,
Okay.
is Toby Construction. So, you know, this is the homestead and they're the ones that run Toby Construction, so. That's why the developer has talked to them. It was kind of fortuitous that
Sure.
it's their land and like possibly their company. We don't know that yet, but certainly it's a possibility, so.
Other questions? All right, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I appreciate it.
And the clerk has my card and so does your city manager, so if anybody's got any questions, feel free to call.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, moving on, we have the council meeting minutes from July 22nd. Were there any changes that any council member needed to make to that, or can we get a motion to approve those?
So moved.
All right,
Support.
all right, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, we also have accounts payable now.
I had a chance to review all the accounts, and I talked to Corey on a couple questions I had, and he answered those fully. One of those was on all the mileages
Okay,
that came out. And basically that was done, basically on the mileages I put into the checks on a monthly basis, but Scott has been very, very busy.
okay,
So basically they decided to put it this way so that they could allocate it back to the right budget.
okay,
So that was taken care of.
thank you, Dan.
There was also a park sign that was questioned on, and that was for the new park sign up at the new park. And then I asked a question on the food license for the National Night Out, and that was answered.
Okay,
And then we had money, which is a semi-pass-through from the DDA for the visitor guide, which was $36.50.
okay,
So the DDA pays for half of that, and we pay for half.
Yep.
And then they granted $3,000 for the DDA for the Williamston Theater.
Oh, yeah?
Just another question,
Yep.
because that was higher than it has
it
been
was
in
a
the
little bit
past.
higher this time, past years, they came to us with the, and DDA felt it was important to support that request.
So those are all the questions I had. I don't know if anybody had any other questions related to this, but I would like to make the motion to pay the checks. Check number 72060 to 72129 for a total of $369,373.02.
All
I have a
right,
Question.
yes,
And it's about the mileage. I understand why it's here, but I guess I have a question, and maybe Scott could answer it, Corey. What is the mileage specifically for?
It's for the use of, when I drive around town with my vehicle, it reimburses me for that.
Okay. Do we have a city truck
The city
assigned
trucks,
to you, or?
and I don't have one assigned to me. Prior to me working here, there was one assigned to the DPW director, but there is not one. We do not have one in the fleet for that. So occasionally, if there's something that I can grab a truck for, I do, but otherwise, I'm using my car.
I asked Corey the same question, and the last time they were out riding in the city truck, they got a call, and they had to jump out and let somebody else take it.
Okay.
So, with that being said, one question, why is there like 2 Februarys, 2 March, 2 Aprils, what are we looking at there?
Because they're basically 2-week time periods.
Okay, that's fine, thank you.
and my question would be, in the future, are we going to try to submit these a little bit more promptly and not 8 months at a time, possibly?
I tried.
Okay. All right. All right, well, those are all good questions and a lot of information. Thank you, Noah, for giving us information on some of those unusual things that show up. So he's made the motion for the
Okay,
payment?
I'm
Yes,
sorry,
and
one
you
more
still have one more question?
I'm sorry, how many percents per mile are we paying?
We pay the
IRS
IRS
is
rate, which I believe is
55,
56.5.
yeah, college does 55, but,
Okay,
I
thank
know
you.
it fluctuates. All right,
I'll second Noah's motion.
all right, thank you. Any other further questions on payments, checks? All right, Holly?
Rhines,
Yes.
Gilroy,
Yes.
Welton,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Bizzard,
Yes.
Bellinger,
Yes.
Wise.
Yes.
All right, our action items for this evening, we just have a couple, so we'll get started. The first is a request from the Williamston schools for the Hornet logo on the sledding hill, which I talked with Corey about this. I think this is very cool, actually. So I was excited to hear about it, and I said yes, definitely put it on the agenda so we can talk about it. But when I went to the mayor's workshop this approximately 2 weeks ago, they talked about placemaking and community gathering locations and stuff like this. So this to me really just, the light bulb turned on, and whatever we can do to promote good community gatherings or locations where people gather, and I just thought this was really a neat idea, so. Yes?
So that being said, I think it's a great idea. The problem that people have communicated to me is the whole parking issue there with it being a mud hole, and we're gonna go and allow this to happen and things happen here. Who actually owns that property where parking takes place?
Corey?
So the property line is more or less at the base of the hill. So
Okay.
the hill is on city property, but the area I think you're talking about,
The
that's
flats
to
where
the-
the
yeah, to
demolition
the
derby takes place?
to the south of the parking lot, the paved parking lot, that is the school's property. And so I can follow up and show you the map.
The only reason I ask that is because people from the football boosters, everything, people are worried about public safety, people slipping and falling, vehicles getting stuck, someone getting hurt, you know, and if we're gonna, you're talking about a place of gathering, I mean, it is.
Sure.
And
That's
This
been a
looks-
parking lot for the football field for
I know,
how
Years.
long?
Years.
but the drainage issues and things with the mud and everything else, how do you keep people from parking there, you know?
But what I'm saying is, you don't have to, it's been, I don't,
I'm just
maybe
looking,
there has been, I don't see the public safety issue, I guess. You brought that,
somebody slips, falls, breaks an arm,
It's school
There's-
property.
I know. I'm just,
They would have the liability for it, and the thing is that because it's grass, because it's been kept as grass, it affords us the opportunity to be able to have Jubilee events down there, which I think is important, because again, that's a location where people gather. So I guess Corey would have to go back to the school and ask them about their liability for that parking lot.
I'm asking because
Yeah.
this
Sure.
is all that area.
Well,
That's
but
why
I-
clarification on it, so.
I know that when I was a reserve officer and stuff, we actually had calls and complaints that people were parking up on top of the hill. So we went and asked them to kindly move their vehicles, and it seems like that has kind of stopped. So I think if we did, allow this to happen and everything, it's just kind of a neat thing to be able to look up there and see, but it would also maybe keep people from trying to drive up the hill too. You know?
How big is this logo gonna be?
Well, it's going on the center of the football field, so it's gonna be pretty big. I would think, I mean, I don't have,
10 foot by 10 foot?
Oh.
So with that being said, is this something that they're gonna mow as well, or is the city
No,
still
we would
responsible
continue
for mowing?
to take care of the property.
but they would go in, when they prep the field for home games, they would put the logo up. I like it, I think it's neat.
What is, I keep thinking about damage.
Uh-huh.
What happens if, like an opposing team comes in town and go, whoa, just like they do to Sparty.
Well, that's a really good point, Sandy.
Let's just, mark something, or doing
That's-
something you shouldn't have or something. I just, I
That's
don't
a
think,
really
I don't
good
think it's a
point.
bad idea, that's
Right.
not what I'm saying.
Right.
I'm thinking, all I can think of is the damage that might be done to it.
That's kind of the beauty of it, is they're not damaging a physical sign, it's grass that grows back and they paint it again for the next game.
I agree.
Sure, yeah. I mean, I guess that's a risk, that, and hopefully there wouldn't be any type of rivalry that would cause that,
Hopefully
but.
you've just been given the idea.
Alright. But anyway, so what's everybody's thoughts? Any questions for Corey to take back to the school, or does somebody want to make a motion, or how are we feeling about this?
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve Williamston School's request to paint the Hornet logo, both the block W and the Hornet, together on the sledding hill, city property adjacent to the Williamston School's football fields.
second.
All right, any other discussion? Holly?
Gilroy,
Yes.
Wilton,
Yes.
Smith, Smith,
Yes.
Bizzard,
Yes.
Bellinger,
Yes.
Wise,
Yes.
Rhines,
Yes.
Corey, I would just maybe, throw that out to the schools, you know, the liability for the parking lot, and then, you know, how they're gonna handle any type of incidents if those should have to occur. All right, thank you. All right, next action item is the virtual machine VM host server purchase. And Rachel wrote this up, but I'm sure Corey, you're gonna take this and.
Yes, so this is one of our budgeted items in the current budget that just started July 1st. It is to replace our existing City Hall server. And if you remember last year, we had budgeted to replace this server, but due to some of the issues we were having with our email server, we ended up dealing with that one first last year. We actually, when we did that, we went to an off-site or a cloud-based system for our email. So we are actually going from 2 servers physically in City Hall to this one. So we work with IT Right, is our IT provider, and has recommended this purchase. It is within our budget for this capital purchase within 2019-2020. And it is the server that houses pretty much all the software that we use, whether it's BSNA, Laserfish, the things that we use on a daily basis for City Hall. It is a replacement of a server that is now reaching the end of its useful life. And with that, we would request approval and take any questions.
Well, I do like the fact that this was already a budgeted amount. We're not asking for something over and above jump what is already there. And I think it's, you know, it's a necessary item. John?
So the server will be here on site then?
Yes.
Okay. And the life expectancy of the server is again?
I think we look at anywhere from 6 to 8 years. The current one, I believe, is going on to its 7th year. And so we try to stretch them as long as we can. What we try to do is anticipate the replacement before it fails.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yes.
Corey?
Oh, sorry. Jean?
I would just have one, the new server, which is written in some sort of weird language here that I
Yes.
don't necessarily understand, but, is the capacity of this new server, sufficient enough to, handle future growth opportunities or anything that we're projecting to need it for, or is it just, it's just what we need?
I think we always build in a little bit of extra capacity because we've taken what's called Laserfish, which is where we store all of our scanned files. It's a huge amount of data. We're putting that onto this server as well. I think it's been sized for that. If we were in a situation where we were running out of capacity, one of the nice things about these virtual machines is that they can do what I believe they call spin up a new server. And so they can do that on the physical device, and they can add space, or they can even add another
It's called
virtual server.
imaging.
Mm-hmm.
What's your backup system? Because if you have one server located here, where are you taking your backup records off-site for safety?
It is backed up through the cloud with IT Right, offsite.
Other questions?
Is there an upgrade that has to happen there for the store, you know?
No.
No.
Any other questions? All right, I'm looking for a motion to move this forward.
Make a move.
Make a motion to approve the purchase of a new voicemail host server at a cost not to exceed $10,362.60.
It's a
VM,
not voice.
sorry, VM.
Virtual.
All right.
Virtual.
Second.
VM.
All right, second. Any other questions or discussion? Holly?
Welton,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Bizzard,
Yes.
Bellinger,
Yes.
Wise,
Yes.
Rhines,
Yes.
Milroy.
Yes. All right, last action item is the wastewater treatment plant grit lifter, urgent repair.
Well, as,
Scott.
as the memo indicates, during some routine maintenance that was done of the grit chamber, we dewatered it, cleaned things out. They do an inspection of the equipment and found that there was some very serious corrosion occurring with the supports that come down to hold the whole airlift assembly together. We talked with H&H Welding, they've done other repairs of similar nature at the wastewater treatment plant, and they came up with a plan. We have to get a crane in there, so there's a lot of expenses that go with that. So this is not something we can wait for a larger project to be done with. It could fall off within days, weeks, it could be months, I don't really know. It's that unpredictable for how bad the corrosion is. So my recommendation is that we need to get on this really quick.
So my question is, in looking at these pictures and everything, these supports, these are going up underneath. Is there any damage to what it is holding? Is there any corrosion to
This is
that?
a comprehensive repair. They also took a look at the stuff that's on top, and there's some repairs to some of the pieces on top as well. To try and go and explain every piece and part of
No,
what they're
that's
doing.
okay. Now, is this freestanding? Is this submerged in water? What is the corrosion due to?
There's like a platform that's above the chamber, and then there's like a walkway, like a catwalk kind of thing. And all the equipment hangs off of this down into the chamber.
Okay.
This is raw wastewater. It's very aggressive, and so it eats the steel up. There'll be coatings placed on the new steel as well to help protect it.
And, sorry, one more. With the repair, what is the life expectancy of this repair? How long will this fix last?
I don't really have a number of years.
I guess, how long has it been since we've had to do something?
Yeah.
How long has this
I
been
don't
going
know
on?
the last time this all was taken apart and done, so it's been quite a while.
Okay.
And I've been here.
So, my question for you is, what are these pipes carrying, waste or air?
This is used to inject air
Okay.
into the raw water as
The
it
raw
comes
water,
in.
so it's a bubbler
And it
system.
bubbles up the
Correct.
air. So you're adding air, it's right at the interface of water. That's what happens, that's what
I'm
happens.
familiar with it.
Yep.
I just wanted to clarify that's what we were talking about. Has it been looked into an option of converting to PVC or anything, or is this structurally supporting the system as well?
It needs steel for the structural support of it.
How long will the system be down for the repairs?
I think 3 or 4 days.
And this is in one of our holding,
This is the only.
okay.
This is one of the spots in the plant that there's not a redundancy.
Okay. Sorry, I got a little familiarization with wastewater, so.
And just to comment, I have no clue what you're talking about until you picture, so I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a little more impressive in color.
Well, yeah, that's what I was wondering too. I'm like, okay, is this wood and we're replacing wood? But no, this makes sense now.
And there's a total.
No, each one of those is a steel tube like this,
Uh-huh.
and there's 4 of them. And then there's a center tube that has the air line that goes down in there, and all 5 of them are in bad shape. We've got the air down as low as it can go, because we're afraid to even turn the air up right now, for fear of breaking it apart.
How fast can the repair be made after we authorize it?
Yeah.
When will they mobilize? I don't know. I mean, I think it's within weeks here, a week or 2, maybe 3.
Before it gets cold.
Are you gonna need my signature on anything in order to move this forward
I believe that
Contract?
would be.
or anything? Cause just let me know and I'll make a
Yeah,
point to get in
Well,
immediately.
the reason I asked about the
and sign it.
PVC, Scott, and I'm not trying to hold it up, is that's what they've gone to at the grounds. PVC, air induction, so there's pros and cons to it, don't get me wrong.
Yeah, that would be probably a complete reconstruction of everything,
That's what I
which
was
is gonna
thinking
cost a
also.
whole lot more than this. To have brand new equipment brought in, we're probably talking $40,000-$50,000.
Right, this isn't a grit chamber in the clarifier, correct?
No,
No?
this is prior to all the clarifiers.
Okay. I know what you're talking about.
When it first comes in and it pumps across the
Across the
road,
thing.
there's a brick building right there. And inside that brick building, there's the wastewater flows through these channels, and there's a rag remover type thing that rotates, and it pulls the rags out, and then it flows into this chamber. This chamber is used to get the chunks of larger things that can settle out before it goes on to the rest of the process for the initial settle.
All right. If there's no other questions or discussion, I'm looking for a motion.
I'll make a motion to authorize the repair of the wastewater treatment plant grit lifter by H&H Welding and Repair, Incorporated of Mason in the amount of not to exceed $10,500.
Second.
All right, thank you. If there's no other discussion or questions, Holly?
Smith,
Yes.
Bizzard,
Yes.
Bellinger,
Yes.
Wise,
Yes.
Rhines,
Yes.
Gilroy,
Yes.
Walton.
Yes.
All right, that concludes our action items for this evening. We have one discussion item, and this was prompted, I think the last request that we had for our band shell fee waiver. And I asked Corey to do some looking into this. What type of fees are we collecting versus fees that we are waiving? Because our band shell and our concession stands do have maintenance requirements, and when we're not collecting fees, and we do have a situation where we have to put money into those facilities, you know, that was my question, is how are we taking care of these? I don't have a problem with people coming in and asking for something, but I think we need to be a little bit more diligent with our dollars, and so they put this together. Holly, thank you very much, this is very thorough information. So I'm gonna turn this over to Holly if anybody has questions, but I'd like for us to maybe think about this and come back at our next council meeting and make a recommendation, so, Holly.
Can we start with my question?
Sure.
Okay. In the packet you gave us here, it says application for events permits. It's on page 5 of this section. So that would be 10A, page 11. Right at the bottom, it says the application will be reviewed by the Parks and Rec Commission or its designated representative for its approval or denial. So my question for you is, this has all been coming to city council for approval? So-
Only city council can waive fees,
Okay.
but the actual use of the concession and band shell
Yep.
go to the department heads who are on the
Okay,
application.
so
It's
it
not
does go to them first before it comes to
Ours,
us?
it does not.
Does not?
No. We're the designated piece of it.
Okay.
Unless, you know, there's an issue or something.
So then, should this be amended then? Because on that page it does say, the application will be reviewed by Parks and Recreation Commission or the designated representative for approval or denial. So should that be switched to city council?
Because I think what they're saying is it goes to
Doesn't, it
staff,
goes to three
designated
department
staff.
heads.
Oh,
They
okay.
Yeah.
look it over
We're-
and
we're
then
the
if it has to,
designated
it comes to council.
Representatives.
Okay.
I don't really know why that's in there like that. We didn't write it, the Parks Commission did.
Okay.
Way back in the day, and they used somebody else's.
Okay. We may wanna amend that.
Tweak
then.
that part
Tweak
there,
that
and
so
then over
that's
here in the
correct.
approval process, there's that other section where it says,
Parks and Rec.
yeah, the denial part. And then the other question I have is, down here on page 6, so that's 10A, page 12, under D, number 2, it says restroom facilities shall provide a separate enclosed flush style closet, basically, porta-john. Is that something that we've been enforcing, or just allowing to use the public? I mean, we can't really obviously shut them off, but for special events and things like that, is it something that we're looking at? And-
Right, they're, unless they have like a large amount of people, they use the city restrooms, but if they do have a large amount of people, they have them bring in porta potties.
I know Williamston Worship Festival brought in 2 porta-johns. The Beer Festival last year brought in porta-johns.
Yeah.
I'm asking because I don't go down there all the time for things like that, and, you know, I know the farmer's market and things like that, I just didn't know if this was something that was
Yeah.
being.
If it's a smaller, like, function, isn't really heavy,
Okay.
then we don't really.
Are we involved
But,
when that happens with the placement of these porta-johns where they're,
DPW also looks at it.
Okay. so it's approved then where the location will be? Okay. That's part of it. All right. My personal opinion, I mean, not that, I really read through it and looked at it. I like the idea of maybe taking a deposit and then returning the deposit when the event is done, whether it's a not-for-profit, things like that. But also, I think a portion of that fee should maybe be kept for maintenance, electricity use, things like that. Because from what I see is we've only collected a total of $200. And we need a lot more. And it's very tough to do for not-for-profits and things, but there's a cost to doing everything, and how much more can the City,
Part of this is, we have to look at all this when we're building these things. Is that's why I kind of keep hammering on this when we talk about it. And if we don't know how we're going to maintain it when we build it, we probably shouldn't be building it. It stinks to, you gotta kind of figure some of that stuff out. Part of what I was looking at was what, I think we got, was it a year and a half or so of expenses that were given to us, the totaling about $3,800, right in that ballpark. Some of this is stuff that will be done whether it ever gets used or not.
Correct.
I mean, winterization fees was were large line items in there. No one could ever rent those things, and it's still gonna get winterized, it's still going, those things have to get done. The largest line item in here was that overhead door, which was a request from our largest user of the band shell and concession stands for us to partner with them. I'm not sure that really belongs on this list. It's a one-time item, and it was a request from someone that we've been waiving the largest amount of fees for. I guess I don't throw that in the hopper when I'm looking at what it costs us to use that, because
well, I know there's an agreement when we take donations and things like that. Now, is there anything in place with that overhead door that if there's any damage or anything done to that, or maintenance would be, it's all falls on the city?
There's not an agreement
Okay.
stating otherwise.
I guess for me, I would be in favor of taking a deposit, and whatever, if something's broken, if DPW has to do more work than they normally do after a group has used it, there's been a festival or whatever, all of that comes out of the deposit, and everything else is returned. But I feel like we've built these facilities, these festivals bring people to town, these groups that spend money not just in the park, and I think I feel like we kind of made the decision when we built these things down there that we were investing in this, and I don't feel the need. Like, if we were to charge the concerts in the shell for, the band shell and the concession stand for every week through the summer, is that something we want to do, or is this just the Lager Fest? Or I guess that, I feel like.
It's like, where do you draw the line in the sand if you're charging?
I feel like we've either got to do everybody or nobody and charge a deposit, and that's kind of.
I like the idea of a deposit. When Corey and I have been chatting about this over the past couple weeks, I'm not a fan of waiving the fees completely. Just because, again, we've waived, close to $2,700 and only collected $200. I would be open to maybe a reduced fee for nonprofits by 25% or something like that, but, off of, the fees that we have there, and then a deposit, and if everything's fine, they get their deposit back, but yet we're still able to collect something to put towards these, because, the other thing too is that when somebody comes to us and we determine that we're gonna approve the waiver for application A, but then we have discussion, we have application B, and we decide not to approve application B, are we setting a precedence by approving and not approving certain entities? And this would be a flat playing field, so that there's no finger pointing with, well, you approved their application for no fees, but you didn't approve ours. I don't know if we've had that in the past, but I could see it happening in the future with the different groups that come to us. So if we just create a reduced fee schedule and maybe throw a deposit on there, and if there is damage.
So can I add to that?
Yeah.
Maybe we have a checklist that we go down when we're going full, if somebody's asking for a waiver, that we go through that checklist, and, what is the hardship that we need to waive the fee,
I think
you're gonna really have people come back at you and go, well, why did you approve theirs? We're looking through the minutes, but yet you don't wanna approve ours. What makes our group any different than this group? And so, and I don't wanna get into that discussion with them and have to qualify themselves
think the way you solve that is we change our policy in writing to nonprofits don't even have to come to council to be waived. We put in writing, if you have your nonprofit paperwork, your fees are waived. If you're a for-profit entity,
I'll chime in. I agree with what everyone's saying, however, I think we need to be fair across the board. And looking at the fees waived, most of these are nonprofits,
Yeah.
so nothing would change if we did the nonprofit idea.
Yeah, we're gonna make,
I think we make it consistent across the board. We paid $868 in repairs and maintenance in 2018, and we took in $200. That's way physically unsound. So I think what I'd like to see is drop the fee schedule by 25% for residents and nonprofits, keep it the same for everybody else, and there's actually no question on what's gonna happen when you wanna rent the band shell. And looking at some of these nonprofits, I think it's not out of the question that they can afford it.
I guess what I don't wanna become is Ingham County Parks, where we pay a parks millage to pay for the parks, and then you pay them to park in the parking lot to use the park, that you've already paid a parks millage to support the park.
well, the other thing too is this is the only location where we have a waiver that is used. I don't believe we have any other parks in Williamston set up for this, correct? Correct me if I'm wrong. So if somebody wanted to use Howard Dahlstrom Park, do they have to submit an application for that?
It depends, like if they're having an event, yes, they would use the city property use, there was no.
But there's no fees associated to it, because this is strictly band shell and concession stand. If somebody wanted to have a picnic down at Thurby Park at the end of McCormick, you know, that we don't reserve pavilions, we don't, you know, it's a first come, first served basis. So,
I guess I go back to, again, is this going to be, if we go this route and we're gonna charge everybody fees, is that everybody? Is that concerts in the shell? Is that,
I think you have to be fair across the board.
because I'm not in favor of doing it, but I think if we do it, then it's everybody.
well, and I think if we offer that reduced fee for nonprofits, if you're a for-profit business, you're gonna have the fees as they're scheduled. If it's a not-for-profit, we're not saying you can't use it, but we're saying, you know, we need to collect something. And if it's fair across the board, irregardless of who it is, band shell in the park, Williamston Community Free Methodist Church, you know, the Lagerfest or whatever, then, you know, I think, I agree with Jeff, I think these nonprofits can probably afford a reduced fee.
And after reviewing, and thanks Holly for all the work, I think most other entities that were in here lowered for their residents, it looked like.
Mhm.
And I did check around to see if they did waivers, and they were like, oh, no. That is extremely rare.
I guess I would ask, if everyone's agreed, put on an action item for next meeting and work in the numbers for 25% reduction for
And see what that
residents and
looks like.
nonprofits, see what that looks like.
And if you've got other municipalities that have deposits, what is their deposit? And some language with that.
So, how bad are we getting hit electricity wise, say, I mean, obviously, we don't know from the Worship Fest for electricity usage, or do they primarily run off a generator? I don't know. how
They
much-
rented generators.
They did.
I don't know what they used for the concession stand, but they spent quite a bit of money renting large generators to run that stage and all of their.
Okay, so, do our electric bills go up in the park, that area, over the summer during these events?
We
Like,
haven't-
significantly where it can.
We haven't looked at that yet. We can look at it, but we haven't. And
I'm just curious how much it, I mean, is it even worth, you know? Like, what's our true cost?
Well, but you know, you also have the meters that they tie into for farmer's market on Sunday, which we've always, you know, we've never done anything with that, and some of the vendors have generators. Some of them, you know, have, like Bloom, has their truck. But we've never done a cost analysis of spikes in electrical usage and everything when or how much electric is being used, I mean.
So
I guess, I'm sorry. And Scott, does your staff empty all the containers, trash containers? So maybe is it after an event, do they generally pick up after themselves pretty good, or is your staff put a lot of time
A
into it?
lot of the bigger events will do what they can to help. I know, for instance, like Bob's event, they try and take care of a lot of the trash and stuff.
Just say I used to haul it.
Mhm.
Yeah, there's gonna be some increase in that.
So the only thing I can suggest along those lines is if there is a big event, we take pictures before and take pictures after, so we know what we're cleaning up, and we can go back, and if there's a deposit, we charge accordingly, if it's an astronomical amount, or just be like, okay.
We haven't found it to be to that degree that.
Yeah, well, as soon as somebody starts having to pay something, you know what I mean, I think that can change.
I'd like to follow up with what Councilman Weiss said, and I think if we have Holly come back with a proposal for us to look at as an action item, and then we'll have discussion and yes.
I'm gonna throw one more thing out there, because we're getting into the electrical and the water usage and different things now. We've decided with other things, and I'm thinking specifically of the library with our agreement with the schools where we pay for upkeep, and part of that is, snow removal and different things like that, that's a worthwhile investment, and not everyone uses that. And if we're gonna, I don't think we need to start nitpicking to that level what goes on in the park. If we want people to be down there using the park,
Right.
bringing events in and supporting our I don't think that's not a route I would want to go.
Could I also have one caveat?
Yep.
That maybe we look at the last 3 years' data to look at a break even. So that when we base our fees, that we want to at least break even or just a little bit. So maybe it won't be $100 for a Friday night rental, it might be 75. But at least we could look at a little bit different structure, at least to even, break even, cover our expenses. We don't want to add anything extra to our city residents, but just take that data and see where it drives.
Okay.
So maybe $25 for something, $75 for something else, $30 for something else.
And all the money for the maintenance that's been paid forward already, that comes out of the general fund, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Just an option.
Okay. That's great, thank you for that. Moving forward, we did not receive any correspondence. I will go ahead and move through to city manager reports, department head reports. Anything to add, Corey?
Two quick things. So we had our bid opening today for the Middle Street parking lot. That's the DDA project. Very pleased with the bids. The low bid is right on our engineer's estimate. So we plan to take that to the DDA next week. Because it's a contract of such a value, it'll be a two-step where it goes to DDA and then it'll come to council at your next meeting, which I believe is the 26th. 26th. So that was very exciting. The contractor that was the low bidder, we haven't quite gotten the recommendation yet from Spicer, but we anticipate that they will be awarded the bid, and they indicated that they're ready, they want to do it this fall, which is exciting because that's what we were trying to achieve all year. The second quick thing, you noticed that we had an item for a closed session regarding our tax tribunal case. I'm going to actually defer to Courtney for a second because she's handled that to share the good news. So.
Okay, thank you. So some of you might know that back in August 2018, a petition was filed with the Michigan Tax Tribunal by Medline. They are the owners of what is known as Centurion in town, that pretty big property. It's a mixed-use property. So they filed a petition. They went on to later amend that petition to include the 2019 tax year. We were kind of going back and forth with them, trying to figure out ownership. Pete, your assessor, did a wonderful job trying to stay on top of them, saying, hey, if this property has transferred ownership, we need to file this proper documentation. We sent them notice after notice. They never completed the information and acknowledged finally that, hey, Centurion is actually just a subsidiary of ours. We bought them. They own the property. So we used that information. We researched the General Property Tax Act and basically learned from new language in the statute that if you are a person who has a financial interest in a property rather than a property interest, there's a distinction, you are not a true party in interest for purposes of filing a petition with the Michigan Tax Tribunal, meaning the tax tribunal lacks jurisdiction for the petition that you have filed. So we filed a motion for summary disposition, which was reviewed by the court, and on Friday we got the order dismissing their case, which is wonderful because it's a pretty big property. We've got to take another look at it. But I think that was a really great outcome, a very fair outcome given what the case law is, what the statute says. We'll see what happens for the following tax year, but I think that they know that we mean business now, so we're pretty happy with that.
Thank you, Courtney. Excellent. All right, moving over to Chief.
Yes, I have 2 items.
All right.
And so last week we had a National Night Out. It was very well attended. It was great weather, and so we were pleased for that. Second, I think most people know that we lost former Chief Jim LeClaire. And he was chief in this town for 21 years, served as acting city manager for many years in planning. And so there'll be a remembrance ceremony on September 15th at the Eagles, and so he will be missed.
All right, thank you. Appreciate that. All right, Holly, you gave us an update.
I did.
Yes, would you like to
Any
add anything,
questions?
or anybody have any questions for Holly? And it was very thorough, thank you so much. No? It was that thorough. Perfect, great work. All right, and we also did receive AGS, their, what's going on with new permits in the city, so hopefully you had an opportunity to review that. If you ever have any questions regarding what AGS is doing, please let Corey know, and he can get those questions answered for you. Committee, subcommittee reports. Anybody want to report on any board in activity? All right, moving right along. We have time for audience participation. We're just gonna move right along on that. Council member comments. I'll start with Dan.
We had a couple very nice events in town over the last couple weeks. Had the opportunity to go down to National Night Out. It was great as always. A lot of people down there, went off really well. Also, the Red Cedar Jubilee helped to put on the Williamston Worship Festival, so I got the opportunity to volunteer down there with some of the other guys, and that went really well. It was well attended, and everyone seemed to have a good time. A lot of folks come to town.
Mr. Smith.
I was commenting to quite a few people of how amazed I was at the turnout for city events as a whole. Just really encouraging seeing everybody out with their families and really just enjoying the community itself and building relationships with each other. So, like Dan, I was just very happy to see all that.
Great. Sandy.
Jim LeClaire, when he left, when he passed with a whole lot of knowledge, He was a great guy. His wife, I worked with him for all the time he was, 30 years, I guess. And I remember the first time I met Jimmy, he called me Love. He always called me Love for some reason. And I went in there, I was just new in town, and found his office because somebody told me I'd have a bike permit. They did. So I went in there, and there's Jim sitting there smoking his cigarettes away. And I said, I'd like a bike permit. And he said, well, that'll be $5. I said, I don't have any money with me. But I said, I do have a pack of cigarettes I'll give you. And he goes, now, Love, that's bribery. And he said, you can't do that. So he said, I'll tell you what though, he said, I want you to go out, because I had Will, believe it or not, that's how long ago, strapped to the back of the bike. So he said, I do want you to get a helmet on that kid. Now that was before the helmet laws were available. But Mary was, his wife was a city clerk. My God, we had a good time. We did. He would dress up. He looked like, he looked like a giant condom sometimes because he put these big black plastic bags on. He did, and he'd walk around, when it rained, he didn't just walk around town with plastic bags on. But he was always involved in the events, everything. They were just wonderful people. He will be missed.
I don't think anybody's gonna be able to top council member comments now, but I'm gonna move right down. Those are great memories, and I love them, because you know what? We're here one time. So you might as well make it fun, right?
Well, you know, what I say comes out.
No, I love it because it's authentic and honest and.
This way is to do.
Yes. John,
I have nothing.
Noah?
Compliments to Chief and all the volunteer organizations and Terry and everybody that worked so hard on National Night Out. It was a great event and well deserved for everybody, for giving back to the community.
Mr. Weiss?
I echo Sandy's comments about Chief Leclerc. Chief hired me in 1990 as a part-time police officer here in Williamston, almost 30 years ago, and I retired in 27 days. So it's, he was a great guy, I hope everyone can be there.
Going back real quick.
Yes.
Chief Leclerc also gave me my start in law enforcement as a 16-year-old kid, coming for ride-along after ride-along. Finally, he just cornered me one day and said, look, we're gonna have to do something with you, because you won't go away. And, you know, and so he created a cadet position for me and put me to work. And it just really gave me that grounding in you know, the wildest career I could have ever hoped for. But yeah, I definitely appreciate the faith that he put in me and then bringing me to that point.
Excellent. Well, we've had a lot of different events over the summer. We had our groundbreaking at Volunteers Park. The equipment is in. Is it functional now, or are we still
Not
waiting?
quite, yeah.
Okay.
Probably about a week off.
A week off, all right. So in a week, right around the time for school to start, kids can take, you know, families can take their kids over there and start using the new equipment. We've had National Night Out, again, fantastic job by everybody involved. This was the 10th anniversary of National Night Out. I was privileged to be able to hand out the awards for the John P. Long Classic Car contest, which was fun. And just an amazing turnout, as always. I can't say enough about that. Farmers market, there's a vegetable competition with every single vendor bringing vegetables in, so get down there because they've got great stuff and plenty of it. And again, we're a couple weeks out from the start of school, so please be careful as you're driving around. There's going to be kids on the roads, going to practice, walking to school, that type of stuff. Be aware of your surroundings as you're going through the community, and watch out for those yellow school buses when they get on the road. And I think that's about it.
I have
One more thing.
30 years ago, I met with our Officer Weiss. Officer Weiss was one of our hotties. Yes. He was our hottie. We all picked, when we went to City Hall, we picked hotties, and he was one of them.
Well, he's got 22 more days of it.
Yeah. Sandy, you definitely win tonight.
Yeah, you did. You sparked a lot of good stories. So see, it was perfect. All right, well, with that being said, I will go ahead and adjourn this meeting at 8:03.